Wow, good to connect with you today again on Marriage and Relationship Clinic. I am Rev Anthony Uviekovo and I'll be your relationship doctor. It's been an amazing time. Like I always start off with, we are seeing your feedback and they have been wonderful. I thank God for those who have gotten answers to their various questions and those that have reached out to us for one form of advice or the other. Please keep them coming. Feedbacks are very important to us. Makes us know that you are following our various series in the Marriage and Relationship Clinic. Today is going to be another exciting time. I need you to actually get to share this video and also drop comments on where you are possibly seeing this video from. Marriage and relationship is very critical to your destiny and whatsoever you are doing. That's why it's very, very important that when it comes to the subject of marriage and relationship, you need to take your time to pray very well, to get convictions, and to know that you are in something that have been arranged to make your life or destiny better. Especially those who are in one form of assignment or the other, ministry, business, career, and so on. Because one wrong marriage or relationship can spoil all your various years of laboring. However, for the past few weeks, we've been looking at the subject of love, lust, and infatuation. We've seen that very, very deeply. We have emphasized so much on that. Today, we are going to be talking on something very, very crucial and important in every marriage and relationship. We'll be talking about communication in marriage. Communication in marriage or relationship. I discovered over the years of speaking to a lot of persons that one major problems that keep reoccurring in various marriages and relationships is lack of communication. Lack of communication. Lack of communication can affect your marriage or relationship. Now, if you are in a relationship, one of the things you have to test for or try to work on is your ability to communicate with your partner. I discovered that several people spend years in relationship and they never really communicate or talk about the real things or real issues that they need to talk about before they go into marriage. Now, when you are married, the communication line is also different from when you were in a relationship. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about marriage, one of the basic things that comes to their mind is sex, right? Is that they are looking forward to that, or they feel is a very, very, very major part of relationship. Sex is important, but as important as sex is, there's something much more important that talks about communication and companionship. Communication and companionship. Communication is key. And so we're straight today, basics on how to communicate in marriage and the importance of communication. So first, what is communication in marriage? What is communication in marriage? Like I said earlier, one of the things you must desire to do as a person in a marriage or relationship is to learn how to communicate to your spouse. How to communicate with your spouse and to your spouse. It is very, very important because most of the times, a lot of couples don't really connect or communicate. Most of the issues in marriages and relationships can be resolved if communication is intact. So what is communication? There are a lot of definitions of communication, but today I'll stay with a very simple definition. In every communication, there must be a message, There must be an encoding. There must be a decoding. There must also be a medium. So communication is actually the sending and receiving of messages. The sending and receiving of messages through a medium. Now, in the case of marriage, one of the things you must learn to master is the ability to communicate, send the right message to your spouse, and also to receive the message from your spouse. Take, for instance, in some relationship, we focus so much on the fun part, the outings, the attachments, and we never really communicate. We can also misunderstand communication. When messages are not passed properly, or when that person sends the message the wrong way, you are going to get it the wrong way. And there will be clashes. So communication is key. How do you communicate with your husband? How do you communicate with your wife? We must also understand that communication is not just speaking. So you have verbal and non-verbal communication. The verbal and the non-verbal communication. So for the verbal, it has to do with speaking. For the non-verbal, you don't need to say anything. You can go with gestures, emotions, feelings, transfers that can be done without you speaking. So you can communicate with your husband or to your wife by touching. It's a means of communication. There are several types of touch. There is an affirmative touch. There is an emotional healing touch. There is the touch of communication. There is the touch that passes the message of I love you. There is a touch of friendliness. There is a touch that gives power or momentum to move on. So there are various ways of communication. And these communications can be verbal and non-verbal. It is very important that we understand that communication is key to a very healthy marriage and relationship. It has to do with sending of messages and receiving of messages through a medium. That medium can be verbal, it can be non-verbal, but we provide a medium for communication. A simple example, especially those that are in long distance relationship, for instance, that you don't get to see every day, or you are not staying together in the same location. You must not joke with communication. You must communicate every day. That communication must be there. Now, the medium of communication is also very important. Sometimes we do SMS, we do social media now, WhatsApp and the rest. There are some issues you want to discuss with your husband or wife that message alone cannot carry. There might be some misunderstanding. For example, a couple is communicating and the person say, I'm not happy. For example, you say, I'm not happy, or I am happy. For you to know how happy that person is, you may need to hear the voice, because that happiness probably cannot be conveyed via that message medium. And also that can also lead to misunderstanding sometimes. Maybe you say, go away. Go away, Joe. Go away, Joe. You may be saying it jokingly, but if there is no communication or proper understanding of that message, it becomes a problem. Say, why will you tell me to go away, Joe? The person is not getting the full details. The same thing. So there are things you talk about via SMS or Facebook chat or WhatsApp chat or whatever but there are things you need to hear the voice to get what the person is really saying or feeling. Communication is very, very key and important. So I'm going to share with us now. Let's see importance of communication, right? Why is communication important in your marriage or relationship? Okay? Why is it important in your marriage or relationship? Why is communication important in your marriage or relationship? Okay? Yeah, lower. You see, why is communication important in your marriage or relationship? Number one, in Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 15, the Bible said, speaking the truth in love, that you may grow into all the fullness of Christ, or all that Christ wants for us. Speaking the truth in love. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 15. Speaking the truth in love, that ye may grow. So number one, importance of communication is the more you communicate with one another as either fiancé or fiancée, or when you are married as husband and wife, the more you grow. Your growth in a marriage or relationship is tied to your communication. How often do you communicate? How frequently do you communicate? How is the communication line? Do you really understand your spouse? Most people have been living together for years, but they've never really communicated, or they don't really understand themselves. So communication helps you to grow. What does your husband like? What does your wife like? What are the things they don't like? Have you said it to your spouse? This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I want. Even when it comes to sex, for example, this is where I want to be touched. You can communicate those things. These are the words I want you to say to me. You can be intentional and communicate these things. I need this to be done. I don't want this. I don't want this. How often do you really communicate? You must sit down to communicate. The more communication you have in your marriage or in your relationship, the more you grow. You see, in fact, love thrives in proper communication. Love thrives in proper communication. When you have that free access to be able to speak your mind and be able to communicate to one another, it will result to growth. A lot of persons have not come to that point where they understand that the growth that they desire is tied to the frequency and the proper understanding of the communication line. So, for instance, you could say things to your husband or your wife that you want to see. Most times, a lot of us bottle things up and we don't expose them. We don't speak out. So, for instance, there have been issues and you are keeping them, you are bottling them up, and something just happens. It looks like a bottle just got opened. Everything that has been happening to you, you just start boiling out and coming out and coming out. And the more you try to fix, the more it gets bigger, because they've not been communication in the first place. Have you really communicated to your spouse what you like? I think I mentioned this last week. Some people are in a relationship that they live in that relationship to just please the other person and get themselves hurt in the process. In other words, they don't really say or communicate what they want or what they feel. For instance, maybe you don't like flowers or roses, but your husband keeps buying them for you because to him you like them, but to you, you don't really like them. But you've not communicated to him that you don't like it. You've not said it to him that this is not what you like. You keep taking those roses and pretend that you are excited. You know what you are doing? You're actually hurting yourself, and you are affecting the flow of the relationship. Something else may happen in the course of that marriage or relationship that will make you spur up and just burst out. And these are the things that are making you angry that you never said. So communication is very important. It helps growth. The more of your spouse or your spouse you know, the more of your husband or wife you know, the more you grow. So one of the things that communication does is that it aids growth. Number two, communication aids knowing or knowledge. Now growth has to do with how the marriage or relationship is moving. Knowledge has to do with how much you know about the other partner. Now, or when there is proper communication, you get to know what that person likes and what that person does not like. When things are not going the way you want, communicate them. We'll look at how you should communicate as we go on. But it's very important that you find a way, a medium to send your message and the other spouse must have a medium to decode that message to be able to get communication. There is no communication until there is an encoding and decoding for you to understand. There are several ways people communicate. Have you looked at your husband or your wife to see that they are not really happy? Their face may be communicating unhappiness. They may not say it. Their face may be communicating brokenness. Their actions and attitude may be communicating, I am not happy here. This is not what I want. Something is wrong somewhere. You must be sensitive to know your spouse when they are communicating, especially the non-verbal communications. You must know. Okay? Find out. You need to fix your husband or your wife when you know that they are breaking down. They need to communicate it. You must find a way to break through the barriers. You know, in communication, there's what we call communication barriers. Things that stop you from actually encoding or decoding messages. So you need to break it. There are some barriers, maybe unforgiveness. Some barriers may be fear. Some barriers may some other barriers could be fear of whether communication will lead to more trouble or not. It's better to communicate and let it out so that there will be growth and there will be knowledge. Also, one of the things communication does is that it shows you the way. Every one of us, no marriage is 100% perfect. Everybody is trying to work on themselves and their union. But communication makes it easier. When things are not done properly, you are able to relate to one another and you get it fixed. Very, very important. Okay. Now, another thing that communication does is that, for instance, speaking brings relief and healing. Speaking brings relief and healing. When you are hurt, when you are traumatized, when you feel used, when you feel like giving up on the union, when you feel like the union or the marriage is not moving the way it should, speaking out will ease your burden. It will give you a relief. Speak to your spouse. So many people get angry over what they have not communicated about. You should not be angry over what you have not told the other person about. Communication is key. So one of the things that it does is that it brings relief and healing. When you speak, then it makes you forget. It makes you offload the baggages that you have on your inside. And this is very important. When people communicate how they feel, if your spouse is communicating how he or she feels, it's not a time for you to argue. It's not a time to counter them. It's not a time to show that they don't know what they are saying. Listen to them first. Even when they are wrong or they are not getting the full picture, it's part of communication. You must listen to them first and get to know why they are saying what they are saying, what necessitated them getting those views, whether they are wrong or right. So you don't shut people off. You don't shut them down. Keep quiet. What do you know? What are you saying? It's a lie. I've never been this. I've never been that. You are not helping the communication line. So one of the things you need to do is to listen to people. Let them ventilate. Let them say themselves. Then you can come and clear the air in a very, very calm and a very, very wonderful way. We'll talk about that later. Now, you must understand that communication is key because of another reason. What you say is what we stay. What you say is what we stay. You must learn the words you speak about. You must be mindful of the words you speak about your marriage, about your relationship, about your spouse. Words are very, very powerful. Speak good things into your marriage. Speak good things into your marriage. Speak good things into your marriage. Speak the right things in your marriage and in your union. Don't say the wrong stuff. Okay? Very, very important. Mind what you are saying in that union or in that relationship. Sometimes you must learn to speak positively. Most times, a lot of people, their perspective about their marriage is they go all out to speak the wrong stuff. This is, you are a useless man, you are a useless woman, you are a fool. You know, every word you communicate, or let's say abuses, you are pointing to yourself. If you say your husband is a fool, that means you are the wife of a foolish man. If you say your wife is a prostitute, I don't even understand how will a man be calling the wife a prostitute. You say you're a prostitute, you're a bitch. All these words are very, very powerful, and they can hurt the heart, especially when the people are nowhere close to what you are saying. Words are powerful. Mind what you say to your spouse, because what you say is what will stay. Now, for example, maybe the man is not bringing the money like he used to do. What are you saying to him as a wife? You must be mindful of your communication. You need to speak him to rise. Oh, my husband, you are a great man. You are a king. I know things are not working well now, but things will work better. These words of communication, encouragement are very, very important. Man, you must also speak to your wife and speak the right things. Don't say, this we have finished. Oh, nothing is. Everybody find your way. Do your level. No. Say, I've said it severally on this platform that if you don't like your present, speak about the future. If you don't like your present, speak about the future. Now, if you, even though you are struggling now, say to him or her, this is just a phase. I'll fly you on private jets. I'll take you out to UK, to Canada for vacations. This keke that you are entering, or this motorcycle you are entering, is temporary. Can you picture our vehicle together? These words are very important. What are you communicating to your spouse? A lot of us speak the wrong words. We say the wrong things to our spouses. So you must learn to speak the right words. Very, very important. Now, confess positive things about your marriage. Confess positive things about your marriage. Have you pictured your union? Where is that union leading to? Have you looked at your spouse and see the glory of God upon that person? See the vision, the dreams, the aspirations, and the goals. You must speak positively about your wife and your husband. And this is very important. Mind what you tell your friends, your relatives about your spouse. So, it's not everything that happens in your marriage or your union that you say out. Now, when you speak, some people, you have issue with your husband, you run him down before your friends, before your family. Not that you even have planned to leave that marriage. Then you will not settle. What eyes do you want them to be using to look at that husband of yours or wife of yours after both of you have settled? So the thing, you guys may settle or repent, but the words you have spoken to others will stay in their minds. If you still went to tell them, say, that's my wife, she's a prostitute, I caught her with a man, blah, 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 and later, you just say, I said that out of anger. People see your wife like that. Or you say your husband is a useless man, he's a foolish man. He doesn't help anybody, he's a very stingy man, he doesn't care about our family. You go tell your family people that, you are causing more chaos and trouble in your home. So speak positive things about your union. Communicate the right things to one another. Now, another way, importance of communication, or something very important you need to take note of in your marriages. You must communicate your love verbally. Communicate your love verbally. Learn it. Learn how to do that. You must communicate your love verbally to your spouse. A lot of people say, must I say it? I know it already, or she knows already. No. See, marriage is a combination of several factors. And one of the things that helps the relationship of marriage is what you say. So don't just say it, I love you in my mind. No, communicate it. Let the other person know that you love him. Now, speaking is not the only way to communicate love, but you must speak to that person verbally. I love you. I am sorry. You are the wife of my youth. You are the husband of my youth. You are the best husband in the whole world. You are the best wife. Don't let anybody deceive you that it doesn't matter. Me and my own, whether you say it or not, I don't care. Now, you need to say it. It's very important. Learn how to say it. Make it part of your routine in your house. You can write it. You can put it somewhere. I love you. You must always show to your spouse and communicate to them that you love them. I've had people ask me severally, especially guys, take note of this. Some ladies, like, the guy doesn't express his love, doesn't say he loves me, and all that. I know that is not the whole essence of love, basically, but it's very important that we learn how to communicate. Sing Songs of Solomon. See the communication line. They talked about everything. How how passionate the beloved was, how romantic the beloved was, how they dreaded or wanted one another. They were expressing these things. Learn to express your love. Learn to communicate your love. Now, when last did you tell your wife or your husband, I love you? It's very simple, but it's very unique. I went to preach somewhere and I gave the congregation an assignment. I'm like, okay, if you told your wife, I want to give them some books. And like, if you told your wife, I love you today, everybody stand up, those that are married. If you told your wife, I love you today, remain standing. In fact, only, I think, few persons were standing, very few. The whole church sat down, right? Until it remained just a couple who said it. Now, learn to speak to your spouse verbally. Communicate how you feel to them. Some guys feel they do that, it shows weakness. No, you are communicating. Or ladies, they feel if they express themselves, they shows that they are is it exposure, too much exposure and all that. So you need to learn how to communicate verbally. So an assignment for you, if you didn't say it today, look for your wife before today ends and tell I love you. Look for your husband. I say I love you. Speak the right words. Instead of telling the man you are a foolish man, you are a useless man, start saying words like, you are my king, you are special, you mean so much to us, we appreciate what you are doing for us and the children. Don't just say, is it not his responsibility, he should provide. No, communicate gratitude to him. One of my friends in those days while we were in school, right? He had this, in quotes, fiancé that I was going out with. They don't talk often. It was somewhere else, the other person was in another. They don't talk often. And my friend will send money to this girl. She will not even reply to say, okay, I've gotten the alert or I've gotten the money. He will be the one to call her and say, did you see the money I sent? Say, yes, I saw it. Did you see the airtime? Yes, I saw it. I told him, I said, this woman does not love you. I don't see this relationship working. He said, no, that's a kind of person. Eventually, the relationship broke up. I knew it was going to anyway. Communicate gratitude. Communicate love. Communicate these things. Don't just say, oh, I know it in my heart. No, say it. Guys, you must understand that women are moved by emotions. They are moved by what they hear. So you must speak the right words. You must know how to say the right things to them. Men also like appreciation and respect. And so you need to show them in your communication that you appreciate them and you respect them. You must learn to speak edifying words. Don't let abuses find a space in your own. Don't let foul language on the wrong words find a space in your own. Speak edifying words. Things that will spoil up your union or your relationship. Another thing you need to take note of is that you must speak the truth. You must speak the truth in love. Speak the truth in love. Now, a lot of people say, I must speak the truth. Anyhow I like it, I can speak it. But in marriage and relationship, you must speak the truth in love. This is the person you profess to love. This is the person you are married to. So in communicating to him or her, you don't want to just hurt them. This is not saying you will not be blunt or you will not be truthful or you will not say the truth. But in saying the truth, there is something as speaking the truth in love. And you must learn it. You must find a way to communicate in that line. For example, if I want to tell my wife some certain things, I do it in love. I already know where it's going to end, so I speak in love. Because the intention for one another, for us communicating, is not to destroy us. It's to make us grow, it's to make us better. And the way we communicate these things, very important. And listen, mind the way you communicate. Some women, for example, they feel used, they feel abused. Some men too in the relationship, they feel they cannot even express themselves. They can't talk. As they want to talk, they shut them down. They want to talk, you abuse them. The same way, they feel inferior, they feel small, they feel like something is wrong with them because there is no proper communication. And there is no atmosphere or environment for communication. If this is lacking in a union or in a relationship, that marriage or relationship cannot go far. Another way you must understand that you must be transparent, right? You have to be transparent. But in your transparency, or in being transparent, one of the things you must also know is that even in being transparent, you must learn that you must not trade the truth. The fact that I love you does not mean that I will not tell you the truth, but we must speak the truth in love. And how do you speak the truth in love? How do you speak the truth in love? First, you must be careful how you communicate what you want to say. You must be careful how you communicate what you want to say. So I have something to say. I have something to tell my spouse. I have something to tell my wife or my husband. You must be careful how you communicate what you want to say. It's not enough that you want to say it. The how is very important. How do I pass this message? What's the medium I'm going to use? So sometimes can be talking, sometimes can be writing, sometimes can be showing. Okay. Somebody got to me recently. They had an issue with the husband, saw some pictures and some messages or chat, and that she wasn't comfortable with, and probably was like, how are we going to? So he wanted to just attack the husband with what she found, and I said, don't, keep it. If you do that, it will restrict the amount of information you have. So just do that. And we had a very nice time, and we spoke about the issues, as in I told her what to do, and she did, and it was resolved. Now, how you communicate what you want to communicate is very important. Some people, in a bid to correct something, cause more trouble. So they are in a bid to provide a solution, but the solution becomes a problem because of how you are communicating it. You don't shout on the person. You don't make the person inferior. No, you have to find how to. You see, you can speak the truth in love. It doesn't have to be shouting. You are speaking what you have to say. You are doing it the way you should do it. It's producing the result that you want, but not necessarily the kind of medium or way you want to communicate it. So you must learn how to communicate what you want to communicate. You must also be careful of when you communicate what you want to say. When. Atmosphere matters. You must study atmosphere. Some people, your husband is just coming from work. He has not even sat there. He has not even. You just bring issue. Where are you coming from? Who is that lady you were with? Wrong approach. You must know when to communicate. And also for some, the only time you communicate important information is when you want to have sex. As it's coming, you say, wait, before you say what you want to say. Before you do what you want to do, let me say what I want to say. You just kill the morale, kill every pattern. He will not listen to you. Some of the things you say, will you buy it for me? In that mood, you say, yes, I'll buy it for you. After the event, nothing. So learn how to communicate, when to communicate. So we'll talk about the how, we've talked about the when. Also know what to communicate. There are some things you handle. There are some things you speak out. But you see, the atmosphere of communication is key. How do you say these things? I and my wife resolved that we're not going to shout. We're not going to quarrel about certain things, about anything. So when they come, we sit down and talk about them. Now, the tone you are going to use to talk about it, we have resolved it many years ago. These are 10th year of marriage. We've resolved it before we got married, and the day of our wedding, we sat down and said, this is in this household, in this home, this is the way we'll be doing, this is it. You must learn how to communicate. Are there times you have been angry? Fine, yes. Are there times you are not comfortable with certain things? Yeah. But you must learn to communicate it. And we speak about everything. That helped us a lot. We speak about everything. Even before we got married, we speak about everything. Now when we were married, we speak about everything, every subject. We talk about them, how you feel. Oh, babes, this thing you did, I don't like it. This was what happened. This was what happened. You communicate without shouting. Some of them will laugh over them. Some of them becomes an exciting time on its own because of the understanding and communication. And sometimes you just need to listen. Yeah, you just need to listen. Some of you have not really listened. You've not listened. It's very important. Be careful of how you communicate. Be careful of what you communicate. Be careful of when you communicate. Now, do not be carried away. Another point you need to take note of. In communication in marriage or in the bid to communicate, do not be carried away by emotional distress. Emotional distress. Emotional distress is real in many unions. You find that the person physically they wear and coat together, they look good together, they wear uniform, but one of them is emotionally distressed. Especially actions from the other partner or sometimes external. But do not communicate out of your emotional distress. You must learn to sieve the wrong from the right and know when to say certain things, because emotional distress will produce emotional backlash, emotional trouble, emotional attack. You want to attack the other person. You start quarreling, you say some words. So you must learn how to communicate, and you must avoid emotional distress. Now, what are the things you should avoid in communicating? Things to avoid in communication in marriage. Things to avoid in communication in marriage. There are simple things. There are several of them, but because of our time, we'll just speak basic examples, so that practical examples that we all can relate with, and we try to avoid them. Number one is shouting. Shouting. Now, shouting is not communication. You see, the ear, if you join the two ears together, it forms a shape of love. When you join the two ears, the picture, join it together, it forms a shape of love. Have you wondered why, when you are angry with somebody, no matter how close the person is to you, you are shouting? I think if a professor did a research on that and said that when people are angry or their hearts are detached, when people are angry, there is an emotional space that is created in their heart, a distance that connects to your communication. And so when you are speaking, even though the person is close to you, it is in your heart of heart is as though the person is far from you. That's why there is need to shout. Shouting is not communicating. Don't shout on your spouse. You shout, usually for men, I know men do a lot of shouting, you have to work on that. The women, it is disrespectful to even contemplate shouting on your husband. It is disrespectful. So you can communicate what you want to communicate without shouting. And one of the things you must learn to avoid is shouting. Why is it that there's always quarrel in your own? The whole neighborhood we hear, everybody in the place we see you shouting, fighting, quarreling. That must stop in your union. You can communicate without shouting. But for that to happen, there must be an understanding from both parties. There must be an understanding from both parties. So avoid shouting. Don't shout on your spouse. Learn to say the same things you want to really say without shouting. Shouting is not a good form or way of communication. Number two thing to avoid is insulting. Insulting. Some will say, let me tell her the truth. Let me tell him the truth. He's a stupid man. He's a foolish man. He's a useless man. You see, when you insult people, there is what we call in psychology defense mechanism. Everybody carries an invisible placard. Written on it is, I am very important. Everyone carries an invisible placard, and written on that placard is, I am very important. Nobody likes insult. Nobody wants to be insulted. Whether you are the one footing all the bees, it doesn't matter. You don't have right to insult another person. and not to talk about your husband or your wife. When you keep insulting them, both of you insulting one another, you are bridging the communication line. You are creating a communication barrier. Don't insult. You can pass your messages without insult. For example, maybe salt is too much in the soup. Salt is too much does not call for insult. Right? Salt is too much does not call for what? Insult. Communicate. Babes, this salt is too much. Oh, you don't usually do this. What happened today? Find a way to communicate. You say, come and carry your useless food. Don't know how to cook. I'll send you to your father and your mother's house to go and learn how to cook for some months. You are not communicating. You are insulting. It's a stupid man. You can't give us money. All the things we want in this house, you are not providing. You are insulting. You are not communicating. So you need to talk to the person. Babes, this money is nice, it's cool. You are really trying, but things have gone up. Sometimes just even beg them, let them follow you to go and buy some of those things. When they get there, they will see for themselves what you are saying. So there are mediums or ways of communication that make you get results. Insulting should be avoided. Another thing that needs to be avoided in communication in marriage is arguing to win. Arguing to win. Now, they don't carry first in arguments in marriage. So it's me that is always winning. Your intention from the onset will determine whether communication will take place or not. So in your communication, don't have in mind that I must be the one to win. I must be the one to, I'm the one that is right, he's the one that is wrong, she's the one that is wrong, and it must be affirmed. So most time, it's not a secondary school debate where you come up with this point of mine, I'll be able to convince you, that you need to listen to me. You don't even say that. You don't even say that. You just come and shout and do all that. You want to win. You want to be the one to say, oh. And another one say, the other person must always say sorry. You never say sorry. Somebody else must always say sorry. And you too, you are always saying sorry, even when you know you should not. You must learn to communicate. You say it doesn't remove anything from me. Let me just be saying it. You are just sometimes covering the issues. You have not settled it. Learn to communicate. Don't argue to win. It doesn't matter who wins. You are one. So the main thing is, how do we resolve this issue? Not that I won. I am the one that won the argument, or I'm the one that is always right. He's the one that is wrong. No, we must learn to communicate properly. And also learn to communicate and avoid insulting words. Okay? Now, another thing to avoid in communication is always bursting out in tears. Always bursting out in tears. Now I'm shaking the tables of the ladies now. You have not said anything. You have just been crying. Like, this is you spend all the time crying. Be bold to declare or decree what you want to say. Don't cry to cover up issues. Bursting out in tears. Hey, that's how yesterday. This is what you're always doing. No, you must learn to speak. Communicate the main thing, the important thing you need to communicate. You can cry afterwards, but the main issue must be communicated. Don't burst in tears and forget about the issues. Crying does not solve, does not communicate. The main thing you really want to do is an emotional expression or outburst, fine, but you must control yourself to be able to say to your spouse the things you really want to say. So bursting out in tears should be avoided, especially when there is a round table meeting or there is a communication to be done. Another thing to avoid in communication is always doing the talking without listening to the other person. Always doing the talking without listening to the other person. Communication should be a dialogue, not a monologue. Don't be the only one talking and talking and talking, and you don't get to hear the other person. This has to do on both ways, male and female. Learn to listen to your spouse. Learn to listen to your husband, to your wife. Get to know what they are communicating. Now, get to understand what the person is saying. Don't be the one talking. Get feedback. Is the person really understanding your processes, your medium of communication, the things you are doing? You must get feedback. Very, very, very important. So you must avoid doing all the talking without listening to the other person. So after you have said what you want to say, ask the person, now that I've said this, what do you have to say? What is your contribution, or what do you have to say about what we have discussed? Let it be a communication, a dialogue. Now, another thing to avoid is always keeping quiet and refusing to communicate. Always keeping quiet and refusing to communicate. You are hurt, something is wrong, but you are not saying anything about it. You start forming activities in the house. You go to the room when he's in the parlor. As he comes to the room, you go to the parlor, or he or she comes to the room, you go to the parlor. That's childish. Sit down and talk. This is what I feel. This is what you did. This is what I don't understand. Come out straight. So, always keeping quiet and refusing to communicate will not help your union. Learn to avoid that. So learn to communicate. When the things are coming out the way you don't like, don't form activities. Don't use activities to pass the message, because it may not be clear, and it puts the other person in trauma, in a very traumatic experience. The person is guessing, what did I do wrong? What is happening? And sometimes even while you are behaving the way you are behaving is not from your spouse. Maybe it's external and you are not communicating. The person begins to feel, have I done something wrong? Is there something I'm not doing well? And all that. But if you simply communicate, it will solve the problem that you are keeping, that is making you not to communicate. Now, another point, I think that should be 6 or 7. Avoid words like never and always in referring to negative things. Avoid words like never and always in referring to negative things or things you don't like to your spouse. A lot of couples make that mistake. The fact that somebody did something once or occasionally does not mean it is always. Or the fact that somebody did something or had never done or did not do a particular does not mean he has never done something good. So you must avoid words like that. For example, you say, you always come late. You always come late. You're always behaving anyhow. How can he or she always behave anyhow? So avoid words like always. You're always looking for my trouble. Words like that should be avoided. You are always late. You are never there when I need you. You never do things right. Those words can destroy. Those words are painful. So you need to avoid those things. So avoid words like always and never to confer negative things, or when referring to negative behavior or something. The person may be doing some stuff wrong, but the person is not doing everything wrong. So learn to celebrate people when they do well, and let them know when they are not doing well. It is very, very important. Because of our time, I'll stop here. This is very important. Put to practice some of the things we have said. If you have any question on communication in marriage, you can DM us, you can drop a comment, you can send messages on WhatsApp. And very, very important, we'll get in touch with you and look at it. Hope this has blessed you. Remember, your union is not between you and your spouse alone. It's between you, your spouse, and God. So any union that does not have God, any union that does not have God at the center is not solid. It will be shaking. So very importantly, talk to God. Communicate to God first about your spouse, their actions, their attitude. Have you talked to God about it? Have you prayed for them? Have you spoken to God? Report them to God. Father, you told me to marry this man. You gave me the go-ahead to be in this union. This is what he's doing. Father, this is your daughter. You gave her to me. I don't like this part about him or her. As you pray, it may look like nothing is happening, but I can assure you that if you communicate to God, His Spirit can communicate to these people to change the attitude and the behaviors that you don't like. So, would you like to actually have a relationship with Jesus? We can pray. Or you want God to come help you in your marriage and your union. We'll spend the next few minutes to pray. So just speak words wherever you are. Lord, I need a relationship with you. Lord, I want you to come to my union. Lord, I commit my husband, my wife into your hands. Come and change them. Lord, create the right atmosphere, the spirit for the right atmosphere in our home. Lord, give us the wisdom to be able to pilot the affair of this marriage or relationship. If you want to give your life to Jesus Christ, I want you to bow your head and say this prayer from the bottom of your heart. Say, Lord Jesus, come into my life and make me a Christian. Forgive me all my sins, and I promise never to go back to them. Thank you for receiving me. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. God bless you. Jesus is now your Lord and personal Savior. Let us know if you gave your life to Christ. And also, if you need us to join you to pray about a specific thing in your marriage or relationship, just drop your prayer request or your message, and we'll get in touch with you. I'm sure today have been worthwhile. Please tell your friends, your relatives about Marriage and Relationship Clinic, where we dissect and look at marriage and relationship issues. Kindly share this video on all your platforms to bless somebody. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next Monday. Remember, I am Rev Anthony Uviekovo, and I'm your marriage and relationship doctor. Wow, this is exciting. God bless you. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Have a very blissful night rest. Thank you.